Hey friends, all right, got a really good class for you that I think is going to be right on trend with what your clients are asking for right now. So got my gal here, she's lovely, she's beautiful, she's got very, very bright ends. However, she wants to go a little darker. Are we seeing clients wanting to do that Mocha Mousse look, that darker situation, like not quite super bright blonde, but not like brunette? I don't know if you guys are getting requests for that, but that seems to be trending very hard right now. So I want to show you guys a very simple way to transition a very blonde with solid ends client like this into that look. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some lowlights in here. We're going to do some root melting, some glossing, make it a really, really, really simple way to do this transition. And I'm going to talk all about how to cool her off. You'll notice she's kind of warm up here, and that Mocha Mousse tone has a little bit of coolness to it. So let's talk about cooling it a little bit without making it ashy and grayish. I can't wait to get into this class. Let's get started. All right, friends, so what I've done is just section her hair into 4 quadrants. Super, super simple. You know, I don't like to get too crazy here, friends. I just like to keep it very simple. All we're gonna do right now is do some lowlights. So the reason I am breaking this up with lowlights, there are a lot of ways to do this, but I like to break this up with lowlights first to just separate and give some contrast to that super, super bright blonde that she's got on her end. So we're gonna go in right now and add some lowlights. I am not gonna overthink this. I'm gonna do maybe 5 lowlights in this whole back side section. I'm gonna take my brush here. I like to use something with a thicker tail comb so that I'm forced to take a bigger weave, but I'm literally not gonna overthink this. I'm just gonna skim off the top and do like big, heavy weaves, because if I do little tiny baby weaves, like that's fine and that's a look and that's good, but it's just, they're gonna get lost if somebody is like completely solid blonde. So she's not solid, but she's got solid ends. So I don't want them to get lost in there. And I might need to do a couple slices. I know, I'm getting crazy, I don't know, but we'll see. So I'm gonna do some weaves here. Now, I wet the hair. You notice the hair is damp, and the hair is damp when I'm lowlighting because water is a natural porosity equalizer. So one of the biggest issues with adding lowlights on blonde hair is that the blonde, it's very porous, so it doesn't absorb the color the way that you really hope it would. So I like to, the best things we can do to prevent that are even out the porosity, and we can adjust our formula. Evening out the porosity, start with that, and water is a great way to do that. Another really great way to even out the porosity is a porosity spray, or I love to put like the K18 mask on the hair prior to putting any color on it. But for now, I feel water is fine. Her ends aren't completely trashed, and she does have some warmth in there, so it's not gonna be awful. So I'm using mesh sheets from Framar. I like using these when I lowlight because I feel like they stay in the hair better. There's not as much slipping. They're not super heavy. And with wet hair and just color on the hair, I feel like sometimes the foils can slip down and almost just slip out of the hair. So these mesh sheets are super absorbent. They stay in the hair and they're very light. But the other thing I love about them, and I'm not a scientist, friends, so I don't know if this is scientifically true, but I feel like they don't heat up, right? Like foil is a conductor. These are not heating up. They're just staying cool, but they're keeping the color isolated. And I love that because I don't feel like it heats up the color. And sometimes I feel the ends on lowlights don't get quite as dark. Have you ever lowlighted a blonde and you lowlight a blonde and then you open the foil and you're like, oh shit, like those ends are dark? I prefer to not have that happen. So part of the way I eradicate that and eliminate that option is with my formula, but the other way is not having these heat up at all and not leaving them on for super, super long. So let's keep moving up the head here. Like you can see, I'm leaving quite a bit of space in between these foils. Now, if you had somebody that was solid, like a bleach retouch solid, I would probably do a couple more foils than this. But since she's got some dimension, I'm really just trying to break up her ends here. I want to, leave some space in between. I want to be efficient. I don't want to spend an hour putting these in. I could probably get these lowlights in like 20 minutes. Because with lowlighting, unlike blonding, there's so much more forgiving. You don't have to be obsessed with how you feather up the lightener. You know, there's the saturation. You got to get good saturation, but it's not quite as intense of a thing. So I'm getting through this quick, and I'm going to do a slice back here. I'm just going to get crazy. You guys, a sliced Lowlight. I was in a class with Tracy Cunningham at the Schwarzkopf Lift event recently, and she did sliced Lowlights, and I was like, hello, why have I never thought of this? Like, obviously that's so, yeah, let's just get more bang for our buck. And she's like, don't be afraid of sliced Lowlights because you feel like they're gonna be really solid and just these like chunky things, but if you do them thin enough, they actually blend so nice, but they give you a nice pop of color. All right, let's talk about my formulas. So you'll notice I'm putting one formula on the top, and I'm putting a different formula on about the mids to ends. So the formula I'm putting on the top is Schwarzkopf Agora Vibrance 5-0, which is a 5N, and then mixed with 7-1, which 1 is Cendré, so blue violet. So I did about 10 grams of 5-0, and I did about 20 grams of 7-1. I don't wanna get it too dark on these Lowlights. I'm gonna root melt her with something at the end and then gloss, or maybe I won't, I don't know, we'll see. But I didn't wanna get it too dark up there at the root. On the ends, on those super porous blonde ends, I wanna use something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit warmer in some cases, but since we're going for almost like a cooler brown, I didn't wanna make it too warm. So porous hair rejects warmth and it reflects ash. So what happens is like essentially it absorbs cool tones and rejects warm tones. It's like, why does that sound funny? So essentially what we run into is like a level 9 blonde, you put a level 6 on it, it looks like a level 4. It just soaks everything in. It doesn't have, it's just a little bit damaged. It's a little bit porous. So it doesn't have the ability to just absorb the color like healthy hair does. So we wanna make sure that we add in enough warmth and go a little bit lighter so that it doesn't get too dark. So on my ends formula, I did 8-0, which is 8N. And in Schwarzkopf Vibrance, I feel like the ends are they're warm enough. They're very well balanced. They're gonna give you enough warmth so that you don't run into like cool gray ashy hair. And then I did 8-0 and 7-1. And I pretty much did equal parts of that. I am not looking to get this like super dark, but I don't want it to be blonde anymore. So an 8 and a 7 would be good. Now I use 7-1 and 1 is Cendré. If you have somebody that is like level 10, absolutely blasted hair, just totally porous and platinum, I maybe would skip that 7-1 in there, but I felt her hair was safe to do some 7-1 on. Once again, I'm not trying to make her super warm. I wanna keep her a little bit cooler. So I am gonna make sure that I have at least something in there to neutralize any warmth that pops up from that 8-0. All right, we're moving right up the head. I'm gonna go back to a weave and then I'll maybe do a slice above this. Same exact thing here. Now my goal with these Lowlights, like I was mentioning, this is my intention with these is to be the darker color of this dimensional look. Once I pull out these Lowlights, I'm gonna go back and gloss everything with something that's a little bit lighter than this formula I'm using here, but not too much darker. With this new kind of trend that we're seeing, these like darker, almost darker blondes, lighter brunettes, but like a little bit cooler brunettes, it's very seamless. There's not a ton of contrast, there's not a ton of dimension. So I wanna make sure that I do not leave her blonde too light. I don't want it to just look like a regular blonde highlight Lowlight. I'm looking for that darker mocha-ish color. So when I go back and gloss everything, I'm gonna use something that's darker than the existing blonde that she has, but I'm gonna use something that's lighter than what I have in these foils. Just a tiny bit lighter. All right, we're moving right up the head here. Take a slice, so I really make a little impact here. I love using Vibrance for this. I wanna bring up why I'm using Vibrance and not a permanent color. When I have a blonde that's going darker, I pretty much 99.9% of the time would never use permanent color for a couple reasons. For one, she'll probably wanna go light again. And for two, it's so much gentler on the hair, and the reflection and just the dimension that you can get from Vibrance is unlike anything else. I mean, the Agora Royale is amazing, the permanent color line, but I just feel like over blonde hair, Vibrance is the way to go. It gives you so much shine. It's so soft. It makes the hair so soft. It's super conditioning. So Demi Permanent Color is always the way to go for me on this. All right, so I'm just finishing up there with my 2 colors. By the way, I'm using 6 volume lotion developer with these formulas. The reason I'm using lotion is it's a little bit more kind of, I mean, it's like a lotion consistency. It kind of sticks in there as opposed to being super slippery. Like the gel might be just a little bit too slippery. Also, when I use the lotion, it just stays where I want it to be. Just doesn't kind of move around a lot. So I'm gonna do one last slice here. And then we're gonna move to the other side. I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the back of the head back here on the other side. Let me finish this one up. But really, you could move through this so quickly. Don't overthink this. And there's a million and one ways to do a transformation like this. You could do kind of like a braided balayage situation if you wanted to. You could do, oh my gosh, you could do so many things. There's so many ways. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Let me see how many lowlights I did here. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lowlights. So I'm gonna do 6 lowlights on this side, and I'll meet you guys back when we approach the front. All right, guys, so I finished both sides of the back of the head. I wanna just take a look at how this is processing. I like to start lowlights in the back of the head, honestly, because I like to adjust the formula if it's not exactly how I want it before I get to the front of the head. I know, it's kind of wild to me, but it's a really good way to check and see if your formula is what you like. So let's just take a little peek see here, and it's looking really good. It looks, I kind of just scraped the color off a little bit, and I like to just check and make sure that nothing looks, basically what I'm checking for is like, does it look way, way too dark? Or does it look not dark enough? Or does it not look like it's actually absorbing any of the color? Like, is it actually looking so hollow and so ashy? Do I need to add more warmth? So, looks great so far. That's pretty much what I'm going for. I'm kind of aiming for, honestly, something kind of similar, maybe a touch darker than her base color is. And I'd say her natural is like a 6-ish, like warm 6-ish, 7-ish. So it looks really good. All right, friends, let's close that one up. I'm gonna spin her around, and then we will get started on the front of the head and low lighting it. All right, friends, so we're moving to the front. And first thing I'm gonna do is just section out like a 1/2 inch or an inch around her hairline. I don't really want to low light any of this. I am gonna gloss it, obviously, so I don't wanna make it super, super blonde, but I don't wanna put too much darkness around her face. With blondes, you know our blondes, bless them. You know, sometimes they're so used to being blonde and they think they wanna go dark, but then they go dark and they're like, I actually hate this. This is the worst thing ever. So I sometimes like to ease into it, leave the little blonde areas around their face, that kind of thing. But we are gonna start low lighting here. I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm keeping the placement so simple. I am basically just gonna take, my sections are kind of diagonal. I'm not really taking horizontal sections just to help create a softer blend. I'm always looking for how I can blend everything more. And a diagonal section helps you do that. I'm gonna take a little slice here. Now, after my spiel about how great the mesh sheets are, I ran out of them. So I am gonna use foils, which it's not the worst thing in the world, friends. It's completely fine. So we're just gonna do our little same exact thing we were doing. I wanna talk real quick about what I would do if this client had some gray. So what would I do if this client came in and she was blonde, but she also had some gray that she really wanted to blend, and she was over the gray, and she's been using her blonde to blend the gray, and now that we're going a little bit darker, what is she gonna do? So I would like to, in that case, I would do almost exactly the same thing I'm doing here. Almost exactly the same thing. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind. If your client is okay with blending the gray and not getting 100% complete coverage, I would do exactly what I'm doing here, but I would use 13 volume instead of 6 volume with everything that I'm doing. If your client was not okay with blending gray and they wanted 100% complete coverage, needed every single hair gone, I would first dampen their hair. I would still dampen their hair, because if you guys didn't know, sometimes gray coverage is even better on damp hair because the pH of water is higher than that of hair. So it swells the cuticle a little bit, gets the color to cover a little bit better. But I would dampen her hair, and then I would go in with a base color, put that on, and while the base color is on, I would do this low lighting and proceed with everything else as I'm doing here, but I would first have done a permanent base color on the roots. Not too crazy, right? Like, it's not that wild. So not much would change if somebody had gray. But I always like to cover that because that is a very real thing. The thing that you want to mention to clients, if they're used to having blonde to blend their gray and then they go to something a little bit more like solid like this, I would mention to them that the regrowth is going to be more obvious. If you're using blonde to blend gray, that's the easiest blending option, the lowest maintenance blending option. When gray grows out of blonde hair, you really can't tell much, right? Like, it's very blended. So if somebody is transitioning to have like coverage on the roots, even if it's semi-permanent, I would just warn them like, hey, the gray is gonna look like it's popping out a lot quicker because we are putting something darker up against that gray. So let me tilt her just a tiny bit right on her hairline, on her part. I'm just still working my way up with those diagonal foils. You could part where they part their hair naturally, or you could just do a middle part. This will kind of work no matter what. So still continuing. One thing I want to mention about these two formulas, my intention with this is not actually for the ends to look a whole lot lighter, okay? You could do that if that's your goal, to have the ends a bit lighter, a bit brighter. You absolutely could go for that and formulate for that. My goal here is to actually make it look very similar from roots to ends. I'm just adjusting the formula to accommodate for that porosity, okay? So just so we're clear, when I pull out the lowlights, I don't want the ends to look a whole lot lighter than the roots. I actually want them to look very similar and consistent from roots to ends. But to get that on porous hair and hair that is darker up at the top and super bright on the ends, sometimes you have to adjust and use two formulas. Are there certain situations where you could just use one formula from root to ends? 1000%. That would be where somebody has a ton of warmth in their hair. They're not really darker up here, blonder down here. So just something to keep in mind. All right, friends, I finished up on this side. Let me count how many lowlights I did for reference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and do 5 foils on the other side, and then we're gonna let her process for 20 minutes, and I'm gonna rinse her, okay? Be right back. All right, friends, so we just finished putting in all the foils, about 5 foils on each side of those front panels of her head. We left out this section around her face, remember, just to give her a little bit more brightness around her face. Now we're gonna let her sit for about 20 minutes from the time we finish. So low light processing time is recommended to be 20 minutes, and I do like to usually let them sit that long so we have the best chance at longevity for this color. Anything on porous blonde hair is gonna fade. It's unavoidable, it's gonna fade warm. That's completely unavoidable, and there's nothing you can really do about it, to be quite honest. So I like to have that conversation with my clients as well. Just, hey, we can expect this to fade, and we can expect it to fade warm. It's gonna get better as we go, and we continue to add dark, but over blonde hair, no matter what you do at home, what I do, it will fade warm. Now you can advise them on the best products to use and things to keep it looking better for longer, but just keep that in mind. So we're gonna let it process for 20 minutes, then we're gonna rinse out, and we'll come back, and I'm gonna do an all over gloss, and I will tell you guys what I'm doing for that. All right, friends, we rinsed her. She's looking good. You can kind of see already, she's just, I mean, it's wet, so can't really judge, but definitely got more depth and dimension in there. Now it looks on the cooler side, which again, that's kind of what I'm going for. This color, it's not too cool, it's not too warm. It's like a funny situation. So we want to be somewhere in the middle. So I'm glad it's not overly warm right away. I'm gonna root melt her and just give her like a little bit more of a lived in situation. So I'm going to just drag my root melt down. Now my root melt's color is 612 and a splash of 71. 612 in Vibrance is 6 Cendré, so blue violet, and then ash, which is blue. So it's actually a fairly cool color, and it's one of my absolute favorites for root melting on somebody that really doesn't want to see any warmth. Like they really want it to stay very cool, very neutral. It's my favorite for root melting over people that lift to be like have a lot of warmth. Like a dark base, like a level 4 or 5 that's naturally pretty dark. I love putting 612 in their root melt because it's a very cool color. But those cool tones, they'll go darker. So expect that it will go a little darker. Now I added some 7.0 in there just because I was not really wanting it to get too dark. Once again, I'm trying to go kind of, you know, not so dark, but not as bright as she had. Something in between and something really soft and blended. I'm not overthinking this whatsoever. I'm just trying to get that color on and pulling it down. You could adjust this as you want it, but I'm pulling it down probably about 2 inches from her roots. Just give her a little bit of rootiness. After I apply this, I'm gonna gloss all over from the mids to the ends, and I'm probably gonna use something that's like in the 8-ish range. Once again, these colors that we're seeing are not so contrasty. Like it's not a true highlight lowlight. In my opinion, it's much more blended, much softer. So I wanna use something that's a little bit darker than the blonde she has now, but not quite as dark as that low light color. So I'm gonna continue applying this root melt all the way around the head, and I am going to let this sit for 20 minutes. The full 20 minutes, and after it's been sitting there for about 10 minutes, then I'm gonna go back and apply my gloss. I'm gonna finish putting this on, and I will meet you guys back as soon as it's done and we're ready to gloss. All right, friends, so her root melt has been on for probably 10-ish minutes, 5 to 10. I'm gonna start putting on this gloss. I'm not crazy about how I put this gloss on, friends. I'm very just kind of, the technical term, I just smush it in there, make sure I'm getting it everywhere, and I smush. And then we kind of drag down, and then we comb. So my formula for this was 7-0 and 7-1. Now I know I said I wanted to go a tiny bit lighter than the lowlights, so that's pretty much what I'm doing here, right? Like with the lowlights, I used a 5.0 and a 7.1, and here I'm just gonna use a straight 7.0 and 7.1. Now I'm using 7.0, which is N, and 1, which is Cendré, blue violet, because again, I'm trying to kind of aim for the more neutral side of Mocha Mousse, Mocha Mousse. And if you kind of Google this color, there's a lot of ranges, right? Like there's some that are a little bit darker that are living in like the more 5-6 level range. Or like really 4 or 5 level. Then there are some that are lighter that are living more in like the level 7 range everywhere. So I think this is a good happy medium. But I do want to offer you guys some other formulas if you don't want to go this light, if you want to go darker. Say you have a client that wants to be more in like the 4 or 5 range with some dimension. I would probably do a very similar low light, maybe drop everything down 1 level. And then for the root melt, I'd probably do 5-1. And for the ends, I would probably still do a very similar color on the ends. Like maybe you could go a level 6 in there with the 7 if you wanted, but I wouldn't go super dark on the all over gloss because I think you'll lose all dimension. But I think a level 7 is a really good option for this. It's gonna blend with exactly what she, kind of what works with her roots and what works with her root color that I did and her natural color. So I like to apply to the sections and then I just comb to blend. It's a very, oh, hello, ma'am. It's a very, it's just not a technical process. I'm just trying to get through this quick. You could also do this at the bowl and just kind of put it on at the bowl. I did use Schwarzkopf Vibrance again, and I'm using the 6 volume gel developer for this because I want to have a jelly consistency that's easy to move through the hair. All right, I'm gonna just apply to this one other side. We're gonna let her process for like 12-ish minutes, and then we're gonna rinse everything out and I'll show you guys the end result. All right, friends, here she is. I don't know, like I kind of love this color. I think it's just a really good blend of not too cool, not too warm. It's still got a touch of dimension in there, which you can see, but that's what I'm seeing with what's popular now. People don't necessarily want to go and have lowlights and have the dark against the light and the dark against the light. They want it really blended, but still dimensional. Makes our job kind of harder, honestly, kind of easier in some ways, because more blended and more seamless can sometimes feel easier to me. But I don't know, let me do a little spinsy so you guys can see the sides and the back. Like I mentioned a few other formulas for this, depending on whether they want to go darker, they want to go lighter, and what they want to do. But I think that this is my go-to placement and way I would do something like this. Like I said, there are a million ways to do this. I have a braided balayage, like reverse balayage video. You could do hand painted lowlights. You could do so many different things for this. I want to curl her just so you guys can see a little bit different, you know, to see a little bit more of the dimension pop with curls. But for the most part, I feel really good about how this turned out. Not too cool, not too warm. But again, I would still 1000% warn your client that it's gonna fade warm no matter what. No matter how cool they walk out of the salon, it's gonna fade warm. Let me give her a little wave and I'll meet you guys back to show you how that looks. All right, friends, here we have curled her. And yeah, I would say recommended maintenance for a color like this. The first time you do it, I would ask them to come back in just like 6 to 8 weeks to check on everything, see how we're doing, see how it's faded over that blonde. But beyond that, I think you can stretch this. I mean, honestly, once, twice a year. It's really just a matter of glossing. And at some point, if they want to add a little bit more brightness in places, you could go in and do some light pieces. But for the most part, it's really just glossing. So I had so much fun with this one. Hopefully this is right on trend and what your clients are looking for, because I know that this kind of very just subtle, soft, but slight dimensional brunette is in. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.